92%, $60 billion, 25% tariffs. We hear these numbers thrown around constantly when discussing the auto industry trade tensions between Canada and the United States. They dominate headlines, fuel political debates, and shape stark economic forecasts. They feel distant, abstract. Lines on a chart, figures in a report. But what do these cold, hard numbers actually mean? What's the story behind the statistics? What is the real, tangible human cost? This isn't really a story about GDP percentages or complex trade deficits. It's a story about people, about communities built, sustained, and defined over generations by the hum of an assembly line. It's about the lives caught in the crossfire of decisions made hundreds, sometimes thousands, of miles away, in boardrooms and political chambers. Today, we're stepping away from the macroeconomic analysis. We're going beyond the statistics. We're going to Windsor, Ontario. Known proudly for decades as the automotive capital of Canada, Windsor's identity, its prosperity, its very heartbeat, has been inextricably tied to the rhythm of making cars for over a century. We're here to listen to the stories often lost in the noise, the stories of the Ontario auto workers, the local shop owners, the community members facing the profound human cost of U.S. tariffs, and the gnawing uncertainty of the trade winds. This is the story behind the numbers. Meet Mark. He's 52 years old. We're using a composite character representing the experiences of many. He's a third-generation auto worker at the Windsor assembly plant. His grandfather arrived here, like so many others, drawn by the promise of steady work, and helped build Chryslers back in the booming 1950s. His father spent 35 years on the line, retiring with a pension and a sense of accomplishment. For Mark, assembling minivans isn't just punching a clock. It's woven into his family history. It's a source of deep-seated pride. It's the tangible satisfaction of knowing his hands, his skill, contribute directly to something complex, something essential, something families across North America rely on every single day. He talks about the camaraderie on the factory floor, a bond forged in shared labor and long shifts. The inside jokes, the unspoken understanding between people who've worked shoulder to shoulder, sometimes for decades, navigating the intricate dance of the assembly line. He earns a good wage, a union wage fought for over generations, enough to own his modest home in a quiet neighborhood, raise 2 kids, maybe afford that cherished fishing trip up north once a summer. It's the Canadian middle-class dream, built on manufacturing. But lately, the conversations on the factory floor, the headlines Mark scans during his coffee break, they carry a different weight, a heavier tone. Tariffs, USMCA renegotiation, production shifts, component shortages. These aren't just abstract economic terms anymore. They hang heavy in the air, thick with uncertainty. Mark describes the gnawing anxiety that creeps in, quiet but persistent. Will there be layoffs after the next model changeover? Will the plant secure the mandate for the next generation of vehicles, the electric ones? Or will that investment go elsewhere, south of the border, maybe overseas? Every negotiation, every political speech from Washington feels like it could directly impact his future, his family's future. He mentions friends, former colleagues who took early retirement buyouts years ago, thinking they were financially set. Some are doing okay. Others struggled, finding only lower-paying, less secure work, their skills specific to an industry in flux. Their stories serve as cautionary tales. He worries about his mortgage payments, still substantial. He worries about his youngest daughter, bright and ambitious, set to start university next fall. Can he still promise her the support he always planned on providing? It's not just the visceral fear of losing his job, the income that sustains everything. It's deeper than that. It's the fear of losing his identity, his purpose, his connection to this place, this shared history etched in steel and sweat. What do you do when the work that has defined your family for 3 generations might disappear? We just want stability, Mark says, his voice quiet but firm, echoing a sentiment felt deeply across Canadian auto towns. We just want to know we can keep doing the work we're good at, the work we take pride in. Is that too much to ask? This constant low-grade stress, this living under a cloud of economic doubt triggered by far-off political maneuvering, takes a toll. It goes far beyond the potential loss of a paycheck. It impacts mental health, straining nerves and fraying tempers. It puts pressure on relationships, forcing difficult conversations about tightening belts and uncertain futures. It compels families to put cherished dreams on hold, maybe postponing that kitchen renovation indefinitely, pushing back retirement plans by a few more years just in case. It creates a pervasive climate of fear and insecurity in towns built, quite literally, on the promise of steady, reliable, well-paying manufacturing jobs. Mark's story isn't an isolated case. It's the lived reality for thousands in Windsor, in Oshawa, in Brampton, and across the network of Ontario auto workers and their families. Their futures feel increasingly precarious, seemingly dependent not just on market demand or quality workmanship, but on the unpredictable whims of international trade policy and political calculations made across the border. The human cost of U.S. tariffs and trade disputes starts here, in the quiet anxiety around kitchen tables and the worried whispers on the factory floor. But the impact of the auto industry's fortunes, its anxieties and triumphs, never stops at the factory gates. It ripples outwards, touching nearly every corner of the community. Meet Sarah. She owns the Morning Shift Diner, a small, unpretentious spot just a few blocks from the sprawling Windsor assembly plant. For 20 years, her life has run in sync with the plant's schedule. Her busiest hours are marked by the influx of workers grabbing coffee and breakfast before their shift starts. Her lunch counter a mosaic of familiar faces in slightly greasy coveralls, sharing news and complaints over burgers and fries. Her business, like countless others woven into the fabric of Windsor, the independent auto parts suppliers, the uniform cleaning services, the corner stores selling lottery tickets and snacks, the mechanics, the real estate agents, even the local dentists and doctors, thrives when the plant thrives. The auto workers aren't just abstract economic units contributing to her revenue. They're her regulars, her neighbors, her friends. She knows their kids' names, asks about their families. Sarah explains with a weary sigh how even rumors of production slowdowns, potential shift reductions, or worse, layoff announcements immediately cast a chill over her business and the town's mood. People get nervous, she says, wiping down the counter during a lull that feels just a little too long. They start watching their pennies. Maybe they stop ordering that extra slice of pie, Or they bring a bag lunch from home instead of coming here. It's immediate, it's palpable. A temporary shutdown for retooling, or worse, a permanent shift reduction at the plant, doesn't just mean fewer workers getting that direct paycheck. It means significantly fewer customers walking through Sarah's door each day. It means fewer bulk orders for her local bakery supplier. It means less money circulating through the entire Windsor, Ontario economy. She had plans, Sarah mentions quietly. Maybe finally renovating the aging kitchen, perhaps hiring another part-time waitress to help during the peaks. Now, everything's on hold. Wait and see. Hope for the best. It's a stark daily reminder. The true community impact of the auto sector's health, or ill health, extends far, far beyond those individuals directly employed on the assembly line. Visual. Wider shots of Windsor streets. Some storefronts might look prosperous, others perhaps vacant or struggling, emphasize the interconnectedness. Sarah's Diner, in many ways, is a microcosm of Windsor itself. This city, like so many proud Canadian auto towns built during the industrial booms of the 20th century, developed an intricate, deeply interwoven economic ecosystem. An ecosystem overwhelmingly reliant, for better or worse, on the continued success and stability of its anchor industry. When that anchor shows signs of rust, when it seems unstable or threatened, the entire delicate web trembles. The prosperity wasn't just concentrated in the plant, it radiated outwards. And now, the vulnerability radiates outwards too. But amidst the pervasive uncertainty, amidst the anxieties felt by Mark and Sarah, there are those digging in, refusing to let the town's future be solely dictated by external forces. There are those fighting for Windsor's next chapter. Meet David. Imagine him as a longtime union representative who's seen decades of contract negotiations, or perhaps a dedicated official at the local economic development office, tirelessly working to attract new opportunities. He's witnessed the cyclical nature of the auto industry firsthand, the exhilarating booms that built fortunes, and the devastating busts that tested the community's resolve. He speaks with a pragmatic blend of weariness, born from navigating past crises, and a fierce, unwavering determination fueled by a deep love for his city. He readily acknowledges the deep-seated anxiety gripping the community, the very real fears Mark expressed, but he also pushes back against narratives of decline, highlighting the inherent resilience, the grit, the strong sense of identity that defines Windsor. David talks animatedly about the ongoing, multi-pronged efforts to adapt and evolve. He points to the significant investments in retraining programs, initiatives funded by unions, government, and educational institutions, aiming to equip the existing skilled workforce with the new competencies needed for electric vehicle production, battery manufacturing, or even entirely different high-tech sectors. He highlights the city's strategic push to leverage its unique location, its border proximity, its logistics infrastructure, its deep manufacturing know-how to attract new industries beyond automotive, advanced manufacturing, agribusiness technology, life sciences. Diversification isn't just a buzzword, it's an active survival strategy. He emphasizes how securing those major EV battery plant investments, like the Stellantis LG facility, felt like vital lifelines, potential anchors for a renewed industrial base, crucial wins in a fiercely competitive global landscape. But David is also deeply realistic about the sheer scale and complexity of the challenge ahead. Retraining thousands of workers, especially mid-career individuals, takes significant time, sustained funding, and personal commitment. Success isn't guaranteed for everyone. Attracting truly diverse, large-scale industries to a town historically and logistically configured around automotive manufacturing is a slow, painstaking, intensely competitive process. You don't replace an anchor tenant overnight. Furthermore, the much-heralded transition to electric vehicles, while holding immense long-term promise, presents its own set of immediate challenges. EV production often requires different skill sets, potentially fewer assembly line workers due to simpler vehicle architecture, and critically, it doesn't erase the immediate vulnerability of existing production lines, like Mark's minivan line, to ongoing U.S. trade disputes, component shortages, or shifts in consumer demand before the EV transition is complete. And underlying all the local efforts, all the community resilience, David shares a palpable frustration. It's a feeling echoed across Windsor, a sense that the town's ultimate fate, the security of its people's livelihoods, is too often being decided in political arenas far removed, in Ottawa, and especially in Washington, D.C. Decisions driven by complex geopolitical calculations, domestic political pressures, or abstract economic theories that seem utterly disconnected from the tangible daily lives of the people building the cars, running the diners, raising their families here. He expresses a quiet exasperation with the political gamesmanship, the seemingly casual use of tariffs and trade threats as bargaining chips in larger disputes. Often, he feels, without a full empathetic consideration for the real-world human cost, the community-level disruption they unleash. We can do everything right here on the ground, David might say, his voice laced with fatigue. We can support our workers, fight for new investment, plan meticulously for the future, but one tweet, one sudden policy shift across that river, one stalled negotiation can potentially undo years of hard work and careful planning. It's a constant feeling of precariousness, of trying to build a stable future on foundations that feel like shifting sands, influenced by forces largely beyond local control. Mark's quiet anxiety about providing for his daughter's education, Sarah's dwindling lunch counter receipts and shelved renovation plans, David's weary but determined fight to steer his community through turbulent waters. These aren't isolated anecdotes. They are individual threads in a much larger tapestry, snapshots revealing the true, deeply human cost hidden behind the stark headlines about U.S.-Canada auto tariffs, trade wars, and economic uncertainty. The cost isn't adequately measured in billions of dollars traded or percentage points shaved off GDP growth forecasts. It's measured in sleepless nights filled with financial worry. It's measured in dreams deferred, in opportunities potentially lost for the next generation. It's measured in the slow, grinding erosion of community fabrics, the fraying of social bonds in towns built over generations on shared work and shared prosperity. It's the vital human dimension, the hopes, fears, and daily struggles, so often rendered invisible by abstract economic analysis and high-level political posturing. Windsor's story, while specific in its details, is a profoundly Canadian story, but it's also a North American story, echoed in countless other legacy industrial towns across the continent. Flint, Michigan, Lordstown, Ohio, Oshawa, Ontario, all grappling with profound economic transformation, globalization, automation, and the enduring impacts of shifting trade policies. It forces us, wherever we live, to ask difficult, perhaps uncomfortable questions. Beyond the statistics, beyond the politics, what responsibility do we truly have to the communities and to the individual people whose lives and livelihoods are so directly impacted, often disrupted, by these large-scale economic shifts and international trade policies? What do we owe towns like Windsor and the generations of workers who helped build our collective prosperity? Share your reflections, your thoughts, in the comments section below. The challenges facing Windsor today, of course, didn't arise in a vacuum. They are part of a much longer, complex history of industrial change across North America. To understand the broader historical context, how automation, globalization, and policy shifts have reshaped manufacturing communities over decades, the rise and fall of the Rust Belt, we've prepared a detailed historical deep dive. Thank you for listening to these stories.